Avoid this fatal mistake. When we turn to meditation, we all have bright hopes. No one in the right mind says, okay, here's my plan. I'm going to buy an ungodly amount of books, exhaust myself for 20 years, and accomplish nothing. No, we all have bright hopes. We all want to, when we turn to meditation, we want to be peaceful and joyful and loving and be our best selves. But most of us endure great frustration. Why is that? Well, remember Sturgeon's law that not only is the Sturgeon's law that 90% of everything is crap, it also applies to meditation teachers. Most are crap. And that's not to denigrate crap. Crap actually is useful. It's good for the earth. But many, 90% of the meditation teachers out there are dreadful. Many of them try to teach us and coerce us to think our way out of clinging. Well, what's wrong with clinging? Well, clinging is sort of shorthand for our primal drives. Our primal drives that are anchored to our dopamine-oriented reward system. Rewards for anything that increases the probability of us passing on our genetic material to the next generation. So it rewards with pleasure and love making and anything that supports love making. You know, food, shelter, clothing, warmth when it's cold, coolness when it's warm. That whole, what's it called? That whole chestnut. So, but what happens is we have a secondary reward system that's oxytocin oriented, and it rewards for anything that builds community, and it rewards with sensations of fulfillment. So we can doink our way to pleasure, but we can't pleasure our way to fulfillment. There's nothing wrong with pleasure, but understand it's a useful dessert, but it's a great dessert, but a terrible main course. It's said that in the opera Don Giovanni, Satan confronts him and says, "You will not have to go to hell if you can name just one woman you seduced." And he couldn't. All of his brain was devoted to seduction, conquest, pleasure. It wasn't, not enough of his mind was dedicated to relationship, fulfillment, and meaningfulness. So I've said all that to say this. When we're confronted with our knee-jerk drives to shove at some things and to reach for other things, what are we to do? Some people think that if you just think long and hard enough, you'll stop having the impulses to shove or to pull, to push or to pull. And other people think, well, it's not enough to think. Our word has to be profound and has to make us almost swoon. Then we will be free from the tyranny of pushing and pulling. For instance, a popular teacher has been quoted as saying, "Whatever is yours can never be you." And when people read this, some very good-hearted people begin to question their identity. But we do not need to experience an ego death to become a Buddha. Ego death was only ever supposed to be a metaphor, not a real thing. We'll get more into the metaphors in a few minutes. But metaphors such as birthlessness, selflessness, deathlessness, emptiness, they're just meant to describe the sensations we experience when we relax into our exhalation. That's it. But in the hands of certain teachers, Some of them good-hearted but lazy-minded, others not so good-hearted. They will teach people that no, 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 you can think your way out of your quote-unquote baser drives. That tends to lend itself to frustration. The goal of meditation is not to lobotomize our sense of self. There are lots of people who are differently abled, who are developmentally differently abled. Let's go back. You can have someone who is in a vegetative state. For so many years, their brain has lost its wrinkles. There's no chance of them waking up. And yet they will still have a visceral response to dehydration, to hunger, and to erotic stimulation. Our problem is not our ability to desire to breathe, to desire to drink water, to desire to eat food. Zen Master Baso taught, eat when you're hungry, rest when you're tired. After a lifetime of meditation, he taught that it was folly trying to stop having drives and stop experiencing a sense of self. It is enough to simply notice as you breathe in and relax as you breathe out. The goal of the path is not to say, I'll never think those thoughts or feel those feelings. That's not the goal of the path. The goal of the path is to experience freedom, not from the presence of our destructive tendencies, but from the tyranny of our destructive tendencies. And you can learn a lot about destructive tendencies from watching dogs and cats. The same two cats that might cuddle and bathe each other, when the mood strikes them, will kick each other's ass. We all have the capacity. We all have a library of impulses within our central nervous system, some constructive and some destructive. I've never seen a Buddha statue with a hacksaw and an ice cream scooper inferring that we're supposed to lobotomize ourselves. That's not enlightenment. Enlightenment is simply mastering the Buddha's eightfold path, getting so good at it that we practice it spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. We don't have to pretend we don't exist. We don't have to question our own existence. We don't have to pretend we're ghosts in the material world, although that was a nice song by the Police. Sorry, album by the Police. Yes, yes, Virginia, we used to have albums. So it's quicker and easier to simply get so good at noticing and releasing that we master it. So again, to the degree of practicing it spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively, just like tying our shoes, just like doing the dishes. We don't have to think about doing them. We can go into autopilot. Tonight's meditation, the chanting is going to be focused on the source text of Dzogchen. We'll chant a little bit, and then we'll rest the mind in meditation, and we'll go back and forth like that, kind of like playing ping pong. It'll be lovely. And we'll start that in after about 30 or 40 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. I've spent more than 30 years let's try this again. For more than 30 years, I've spent more than 8 hours a day, every day, studying and practicing and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each sect of Buddhism, so you won't have to. I play the role of Qui-Gon Jinn to your Yoda, so that you can quickly and easily become the person that your dog already thinks you are. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. There is no need to pray or perform magical incantations. However, just as a runner, just as a sprinter has a visceral reaction to the sound of a starter's pistol or the sight of a finish line, similarly, I found that my students enjoy the closure, enjoy the structure of a little love-oriented chant before we meditate, and a little love-oriented chant after we meditate. And so we're going to perform some very concise recitations that are not designed to be prayers to real or imagined entities. We're simply using words to exercise the neural pathways that are responsible for bodhicitta's empathy and refuge's enthusiasm. Our first recitation is more literal, worded, and it's set to a triplet chant together. Take two. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging by relying on thee, Buddha's example, instructions, and students. Now, these three are so useful that they've earned the metaphoric nickname of the three wish-fulfilling jewels. We come to our final premeditation recitation. We're setting it. This recitation is concise, figurative, and it's set to a bookend chant together. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. Cowabunga. So, in a nutshell, the key to meditation is this. The key to mindfulness is that every time we inhale, we access our sympathetic nervous system that empowers us not to actively concentrate, but to notice, vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. The key to meditation is that every time we exhale, we are wired by our parasympathetic nervous system to physically relax and mentally release. It's just that simple. So together, as a team, let's meditate as profoundly as Ahsoka Tano on Lothal. We'll be, as children, our primary or secondary caregiver might have bolted training wheels onto our bicycle. It was clunky, but it served a purpose. Similarly, for our first meditation, we're going to play with a 12-syllable technique. It's clunky, but it's useful to remind us that as we inhale, we'll be perceiving the very turbulent play of mind, and as we exhale, we will be relaxing into mind's non-graspable nature. We don't choose what to feel or what to experience. We just choose to notice it and relax in harmony with our breathing. Remember, the moment you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. Let's chant. I pay homage to the Bhagavan, glorious Vajrasattva. Bhagavan is just a metaphor that helps us remember that the four metaphors that just like Vajrasattva's paradise, our circumstances are appearing at void, just like Vajrasattva's body of light, our experience of the physical is sensual yet now graspable. Just like Vajrasattva's six-syllable mantra, our experience of the interpersonal can be resounding yet non-graspable. And just as Vajrasattva's seed mantra is comprised of light, likewise our minds can be lucid yet non-graspable. That's all that's meant by the phrase Bhagavan. Let's continue. The total space of Vajrasattva is the ever good and immense ultimate dimension of phenomena. Being the pure total path that liberates all, it does not arise or cease, it does not think of anything. Being love and thus thoroughly accomplished, it does not practice great compassion. Being great, the profound qualities of greatness need not be praised. Phenomena do not move the authentic condition. Since self-originated wisdom is beyond searching, in liberating itself, take two. In liberating itself, it also shows the path of liberation. Let's remove the first of two metaphoric training wheels and transition from 12-syllable exercise to just a 3-syllable exercise. As we inhale, we can silently and mentally recite, notice this. And as we exhale, we can silently and mentally recite, relaxing. As we sit in meditation, there are times when it feels like our experience is so intense, it feels like we're being slapped about the head and shoulders, like by someone to whom we owe money. So when that happens, we can play with labels, not to make the experience go away, but to productively harness the kinetic energy, the momentum of the experience. And so, depending upon what comes up, we could work with. You can play with labels such as appearance, resonance, sensation, this flavor, this fragrance, emotion, intention, cognition, recollect, imagine. And it's no coincidence each of these labels is 3 syllables long. Please remember, it's not our job to perfectionistically agonize over when to use a label and which label to use. Meditation is a lot like making love. It's best when it's spontaneous and messy. Give yourself permission to have a learning curve. Let's chant. Remember, when you have a question, this is opaque, so don't be frightened to ask when you have a question. Or type when you have a question. The great elements or the Bhagavan that exists by nature in all beings. So in other words, remember, at the beginning of the Iron Age, it was thought we have 4 or 5 elements. The question here is not how many elements do we have. The question is, when we experience something that we consider an element, to remember to notice it and release it, as if our air element was spacious yet non-graspable, our fire element was warm yet non-graspable, our water element was wet yet non-graspable, our wind element was dynamic yet non-graspable, and our earth element was stable yet non-graspable. So the basic theme, the common denominator, is we notice and we release. That's the path, regardless of what we notice. We don't have to force release. Every time we are already wired to relax every time we exhale. It's just a question of whether or not we're able to get out of our own way. Together. However wrongly it may be conceived, liberation originates from oneself and not elsewhere. A real or imagined god or a goddess can't help you. A teacher cannot just give you enlightenment. They may be able to guide you. But it's like what Morpheus said to Neo. I can only just show you the door. Only you can walk through. The wisdom of greatness is difficult to find. It is realized through Prajna method. Though it could be said to depend on something else, bliss originates from oneself, which is discovered by every kid in junior high. The great miracle is not difficult, all qualities and capabilities. Thus, through subtle understanding of the authentic condition immediately arise from oneself. At last we remove the second of 2 metaphoric turning wheels. Come at last to cruising speed, our essential practice, our one-syllable practice. As we breathe in, we could silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this, and as we exhale, we could silently and mentally recite the monosyllabic verb ease, which functions as a synonym of relax. That's synonym, not cinnamon. Only one of them belongs in your oatmeal. So, as you probably guessed, we have to use poetic license to convert 3-syllable labels to 1-syllable labels. So physical sensations we're going to call form, emotional sensations we're going to call feel, recollections we're going to call then, and flights of fancy we're going to call dream. Meditation is relaxing without seeking, in the Dharmata's mastery of awareness and letting go that does not appear visibly. So this is it. Meditation is relaxing. After noticing whatever comes up, but having an agenda. Sometimes we notice the external, sometimes the internal. Sometimes the physical, sometimes the mental. Sometimes the pleasurable, sometimes the painful, sometimes the interesting, sometimes the boring, sometimes the glorious, other times the grotesque. If one searches either for the Dharmata or for something in it, the natural condition will never manifest. We do not force, we flow. Oh, look, a question. Excellent. So, Wide World Sports Highlights. Okay, don't mind the goofy name. It's a work in progress. For one, thank you. You're welcome. For two, hello. And are these chants straight from the Buddha, or do you write them? Excellent question. So, the Buddha did not write down chants. People developed chants over the centuries. Some were very, very, very cryptic. Some were very, very, very specific. Some were very, very extensive. Some were very, very concise. In the history of Buddhism, there have been a series of reformers, and two that come to mind would be Yongjie Xuanzhui, the author of the Song of Enlightenment from China, and Prahe Vajra, the author of The Eternal Space of Vajrasattva from the Swat Valley in Afghanistan. Both of them, like Buddha, were not keen. Buddha, by the way, was not keen on ritual at all. Only reason I use an opening and ending chant is because I found that people like structure, and I use them as mnemonic aids to help people remember what the Eightfold Path is. So what I practice are adaptations of classic Buddhist recitations. I hope that makes sense. Thank you for the question. The supremely secret reality cannot be heard through the sense of hearing. Likewise, it cannot be expressed by the tongue, not even in the slightest. One of my late Chinese teachers explained this thusly. When the texts say secret, we don't mean, oh, it's a secret, I can't tell you. I mean, it's hidden and not obvious. For instance, right now, my lungs are secret. You can't see them because my body is intact. If you could see my lungs, That would be very, very, very bad. I think there was a Viking means of torturous execution known as the Iron Butterfly. Yeah, that's bad. That's bad. There's no coming back from that. Similarly, just as my lungs are hidden within my body and my body is hidden within my shirt, similarly, our experience of liberation is not forced. It's latent. It's already there. Within every inhalation is a seed of mindfulness. Within every exhalation is a seed of meditation. That's why the Buddha taught that it doesn't require the lifespan of 3 universes to become a Buddha. It doesn't take 7 lifetimes to become a Buddha. In fact, it could be done in even just 7 days. That's because the path of Buddhahood is not paved in pseudo-spiritual trivia, but in simply vulnerability and release. The suffering of beings is the bodhicitta, or mindset of enlightenment, that fully manifests while pervading all. Without ever being moved, it abides equally just as the reaches of space. Sometimes life is a bowl of cherries, other times it's the pits. Other times it's a steaming pile of monkey poo. Whatever we notice serves us on the spiritual journey. We don't have to lie to ourselves about what we feel. We don't have to tell ourselves to feel a certain way or believe a certain way. When you feel something that makes you feel a certain way, notice it. And then as you exhale, relax. The great irony is that the stronger the experience, the more energy, the more momentum, the more stank on it, the more efficiently it impels us along the path of enlightenment. Together. So for instance, right now I'm experiencing really sharp sinus pains. So as I breathe in, I silently and mentally recite form. As I exhale, I silently and mentally recite ease. No, that does not get rid of the pain, but it helps to harness the momentum and capture the momentum, allowing it to turn the metaphoric wheels and shafts and gears and pulleys of the metaphoric enlightenment machine. That which is the equality of all distinctions is conceived by saying it is karma. Were it really under the power of karma, self-originating wisdom would not exist. The causes, the vajra, the causes, the vajra, as are the secondary conditions. Never having been born, it cannot be destroyed, since it is the Bodhi essence that exists from the beginning. The ultimate dimension is not removed by the effort of thought. So, Bodhi essence. We have these, so we live in the Silicon Age, and we have imaging machines, and we can see the wonders of the brain. Very cool. They didn't have that 25 centuries ago, 26 centuries ago, in the Iron Age, what they did have is metaphor, and what they refer to as the Buddha nature, we could refer to as the neurological mechanisms inherent in every complex organism that make empathy and perception and release possible. They're already there. We don't have to force them. We just get out of our own way. Meditative stability of supreme quality. Being real meditative stability is beyond the tyranny of thought. Without applying thought or purifying in accordance with nature, from thought itself wisdom springs forth. Thought is not the enemy of wisdom. We don't have to lobotomize ourselves. It would create quite a mess and frighten the dog. So, when we notice thoughts, when we breathe in, and as we exhale, we relax. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. So check this out. This simple technique works. It works for PTSD. It works for autistic meltdowns. It works for ADHD meltdowns. This stuff works. It works when you're in physical pain. It works when you're in emotional pain. It works when everything's hunky-dory. Man, it even works when you're receiving your favorite sexual favor. Coining the expression, the gateway to the subtle. They seek the path by isolating the mind, maintaining isolation in a secluded place. If we examine well, this is conceptual meditation. Ain't no need to live in a cave. They coined the terms cause and effect, but both virtues and negativities dissolve completely. They say we will get out of this world and nurture supreme complacency in accepting and rejecting. So this is a lampoon of duality. We'll explore non-duality in a moment. Attachment and non-attachment are the path of words, and something in the middle is the same as like an echo. Happiness and suffering have the same cause, said Vajrasattva, Lord of Beings. So what do we mean by this about this whole duality business? Okay, check this out. Notice that these words are generic. Instead of talking about beauty or ugliness, we talk about seeing or sight. Instead of talking about discordant or harmony, we talk about sound. Instead of talking about pleasure or pain, we talk about form. So we're not ignoring the existence of something. We're just choosing a generic label to sidestep duality. Once again, we don't talk about fragrance or stank. We talk about scent. We don't talk about happiness or sorrow. We talk about feel. We don't talk about malice or beneficence. We talk about will. We don't think about stupid or dull. We use the term think. We don't talk about a happy memory or a sad memory, just a memory. We don't talk about a pleasant dream or a bad dream, just a dream. So we're not repressing, but we're using deliberately gentle language as opposed to sharp language and overly precise language. You've probably heard the term losing the forest for the trees. Can you imagine going to a sequoia forest, jumping out of a car, approaching sprinting towards the first tree you see, touching your nose to it, and just focusing on that one hunk of bark, 3 centimeters, 2 centimeters from your eyeball, depending on the size of your nose. And doing that for a week, and then getting back in your car and driving home and saying, oh man, I had a marvelous experience in the sequoia forest. No, you didn't. You just ogled a piece of bark for a week. So just as we need to step back and see the forest as a whole, we choose non-duality. We choose not to get overwhelmed with the details. And when we feel overwhelmed, we'll call that feel and work through it. Attachment, anger, and ignorance arise from the path of enlightenment's total bodhi. Bodhi means enlightenment, so yes, it's being kind of redundant. The five sense objects of enjoyment too, also to be the ornament of the Dharmadhata dimension. It's not our job to repress our perception of visual pleasures or auditory pleasures or kinesthetic pleasures or gustatory pleasures or olfactory pleasures or mental pleasures. The problem is not the presence or absence of pleasure. The question is, do we notice it? Do we release it? That's it. Space is beyond the arising of thought, and thought itself is like space, without attachment from space dedication, once great it manifests as space. We are already wired for empathy. We don't have to force it. If there is such a thing as positive energy, then the positive energy that we generate from noticing and releasing automatically frees us from the yucky energy of fear. Automatically helps to light up the part of our brain, the anterior cingulate gyrus, responsible for empathy. This is an automatic, natural process. Therefore, generating energy and lovingly guiding it outward is natural. We don't have to force it at all. You know what? I'm going to be crass here. I'm going to be rude. It's like taking a bowel movement. If you force at it, you're going to injure yourself. You could get hemorrhoids. You could get a stroke. That's what they found Elvis Presley. He had a stroke on the can, for God's sakes. Or if you have a proper diet, it'll take care of itself. You sit down, assume the position, and read. Oh no. TikTok, and everything takes care of itself. No effort necessary. And just as if there's something wrong if we have to strain at a bowel movement and it's not sustainable, similarly, concentration is about strain. Noticing and release is about effortless. That's right, I just told you, the path to enlightenment is a smooth move. All class, all the time. Thought for your quality is the Dharmakaya mastery of awareness and letting go. Like the moon's reflection in water, it cannot be grasped. Through the energy manifestation of Samantha Mantra, the Ali Kali or thousand consonants are profoundly displayed. Through the beautiful tongue, the ponder emanated branches, in the sphere of experience of the whole world, the profound voice of the Buddha arises. So what was just here explained subtly is that it's not, yes, mantras can be powerful. You can hear them, you can feel them, that's lovely. But the ultimate experience comes from noticing and releasing. Wonderful the sphere of experience of the Buddhas is not a place to be found by searching, and like the phenomena of the six senses, it is also not an object we should grasp after. Those who search for it are like the blind reaching for the sky. The gradual path of purity that leads higher and higher does not correspond to the nature behind action. Were there really a path to tread just like the bounds of the sky, one would never arrive. So, if someone tells you meditation is difficult, it's arduous, and it requires a lifetime of practice, run away. And these people, that person who told you this, is trying to sell you residency inside a prison cell, metaphorically speaking. Excellent. Another question. I love questions. So, man, I thought that I was going to have to hike up the mountains for this. You're awesome. Thank you very much. So how does this work? Are you a master now, or do I have to go sit by a tree for a day and contemplate? No. There's a wonderful phrase I learned from my Tibetan teachers, spiritual friend. And it's simple. If you find my teachings helpful, I am happy to help you out. If you think I suck and you decide to find another teacher, I will wish you well. If you know, so it's just that simple. Every 12 hours, if everything goes well, I'm here live on YouTube. My live streams are saved by YouTube. Anytime you got a question, type that question in the chat window or the comment area, and I will be elated to answer it for you. It's just that simple. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. The authentic condition being thus by being shown as it is attained. As it is the very essence it's met. Please excuse my speech impediment. It gets worse as I get tired. As it is the very essence its manifestation arises from it. Oh, how marvelous. Time past and time present, or the authentic condition that is complete in its own place. Likewise, its path is the same, that is, this is its very nature. The universal path, it is the same as that, is like the moon, the basis of its reflection. As it is the absolute equality of all, it is not realized with a limited view. So, the path, so think of it this way. According to ancient texts, the Buddha had a cousin named Devadatta. He was a real pain in the ass. and if the Buddha could be described as an individual who was flexible, loving, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind, then his cousin was rigid, fearful, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. Yeah, not a warm, cuddly fellow. So when we are controlled, when we are rigid and fearful and controlling, we're pretty much cutting ourselves up from the process. When we are flexible and able to and laid back, then we experience greater and greater centered spontaneity. And when our choices, utterances, and deeds flow from centered spontaneity, then life is heaven on earth. One of my teachers used to insist, the Pure Land is now or never. So he was trying to say is, we do not reach for enlightenment in the distance. We do not reach for paradise someplace else. By using meditation to generate centered spontaneity, we become the hero that we've been waiting for. Present bliss and later bliss are what is directly experienced and what ensues from it. Since they imply the defect of an aspect, one should not rely on them. So we don't chase bliss. We don't push it away, but we don't chase it. It's kind of like I used to have a pal named Alan, and he had a wife named Maria. And one day, the kitty cat was under the couch, and she wanted to get it out from under the couch. So she started poking at the cat with a broomstick, and for some strange reason, that didn't work. So when Maria went off to rethink her life, Alan just put the broom away. He theatrically stepped into the kitchen, with loud clomping footfalls, reached for a can of tuna, opened it up in the electrical can opener, turned around, and there was the cat. So similarly, forgive the cliche, but good things do come to those who wait. As long as we're waiting in a relaxed, mellow, vulnerable way. The three times are one without distinction, without past or future, it exists from the beginning, since all pervaded by the Dharmakaya, that is the mastery of awareness and releases the same. It abides in nature's total greatness. Finding oneself in the three realms of existence, all is just a name and a magical illusion. Even the great status of a Chakravartin, universal king, being a magical illusion, is unable to purify. So no matter where you go, notice and release. No matter what you experience, notice and release. Are you beginning to see a pattern here? For those whose attitude depends on time, it does not manifest in time. If one practices with an aspiration without being free, the saying on the characteristics of emptiness applies. One of my teachers used to scold me. "Oh, you're so greedy for enlightenment." I was the opposite of laid back for many years. It is one totally beyond an aspect. The yogi dwells in the pathways of birds in the skies, in the essence that never occurred and never originated, where all phenomena are supposed to exist. The more we notice, the more relaxed, the more non-graspable things can feel, at least in the moment. Outer and inner, or both the outer is the inner. The profound is not an object of understanding, not even a part of it. Existence is only a name, the power of mistaken existence. Thus one remains separate from the equality of meditation. We don't need to analyze, we don't need to name things, we don't need to exercise pseudo-intellectualism or blind faith. In the outer and inner samayas are commitments to rely upon our teachers' example, instructions, and students. Abide in the nature of the aggregates of form, feeling, appraisal, impulse, and awareness, and sense bases of seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, smelling, emoting, intending, cognizing, recalling, and imagining. Since in the three times no one is ever separate from it, there is no need to ever use the word samaya. The great Karma Jigme said the key to morality is non-violence. The original essence of morality in the Eightfold Path is simply being kind, wishing others well with your mind, being kind with your communication and your conduct, and even your commerce. Let's not be Karens to try to get people fired. Let's not try not to be chads and put businesses out of business. Let's just be kind and loving. When we have a consistent and effective practice of mindfulness and meditation, the kindness flows naturally. You will still feel the full spectrum of emotions, but the impulse to do the kind thing will simply grow stronger and stronger. Immovable, it is a symbol of the body. Unshakable, it is wisdom. Not taking hold of anything, it has no self. Not rejecting anything, it has the equality that transcends words. Unlike me, when it comes to words, I'm full of it. Notwithstanding what, whose, and where, all that one uses and enjoys arises from oneself. Here of males and females, the queen of equality has never spoken. So let's not worry about sexuality or gender or race, if there is such a thing, there isn't, or culture. Let's just be kind and respectful to everybody, everywhere, all the time. I love the photographs you sometimes see on the internet of two women shopping while carrying their babies, and their babies are reaching out across the aisle and holding hands with each other, even though they've never met, even though they come from, they look different, their skins are different color, they don't know hate. We can be like that. We're wired to be like that. Why did the Buddha persist in meditating after he was enlightened? I don't know. Why do buff people continue to work out after they're buff? To maintain their buffness. Why else do they work out? Because they find it pleasurable. The only way to do anything consistently, sustainably in the long term is to do it in a way that's both sustainable and pleasurable. Ah, yes, hedonism, that can be our friend. So even though enlightenment is nigh, we persist in noticing and releasing because we're wired to do so, because it feels good and it helps us be our best self. Here there is no mention of something to accomplish by means of resolute, forceful conduct, but it is deemed that possessing the bliss of magical illusion arises. Since nature cannot be defined in one single way, it appears according to how one looks at it. Yes, Obi-Wan Kenobi is from a certain point of view. Even the bliss from the effort in which for its manifestation it is a great hindrance and defect. Yes, effort and longing are counterproductive. In all the secondary methods for Bodhi enlightenment, one meditates on the attributes of a tantric archetype like the moon's reflection on water. But even if something untainted and unattached results, such meditation is like the sphere of experience of an ordinary person. The late great Albert Einstein is rumored to have said the following: any educated idiot can make things more complicated, more difficult, more violent. But it takes a lot of courage and a little bit of genius to move in the opposite direction. This is supposed to be an easy path. The Buddha said it can be done in a week. There's always people who are going to make it more difficult and more complicated. Sometimes maliciously, often just stupidly. Although by identifying with the body of the great wrathful one archetype, with its body wrathful grimaces as well as attributes, with even the symbol concretely actualize the authentic intuition of the acquiescent state is not seen. We do not require mental gymnastics. Just as the top of a palm tree is cropped and just as a seed is burnt by fire, likewise the dominion of the powerful emotions may be prevented, as some have taught. All the hundreds and thousands of methods, according to one practices, bear their specific fruit. But since enlightenment is beyond conceptual characteristics, it does not manifest from these abodes. There's always going to be someone telling you you're not working hard enough. They're probably being a bonehead. Good fortune has a yogi who abides in this indestructible state. For by not discriminating between self and others, Take two. For by not discriminating between self and others, the magical illusion of self-perfection manifests. As nothing is excluded, it is perfectly complete. It is unchanging and remains straight. Boundless like space, it is not a phenomena that depends on something else. The spontaneously existing total bliss arises from one's recognition through the very power of incomparable wisdom. Reality does not originate from anything else. It is easy and difficult. It is difficult because it is easy. It does not manifest directly, but is all-pervading. Not even Vajrasattva can point it out with a name, saying this is it. Welcome to the live stream. When you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or their application, simply type your question in the chat window. This amazing momentous energy manifestation is beyond action and equal to space. From the ignorance that does not conceptualize anything, it immediately arises within oneself. This is the path equal for all, that naturally abides in all beings. But since ordinary people allude to defilement, it is like when the doctor has to find the medicine. In the domain of understanding is total bliss. That itself is like the utterly pure land of Vati. When lights concentrate from all sides, the four directions, the intermediate ones, and the above and below are produced. From the indefinite colors of the rainbow, the features of the five Buddha families manifestly appear. And likewise the moving particles and unmoving environment, but it is superior to the five elements. Okay, that can be very, very confusing. Think of it this way. Whatever we experience, pleasurable or painful, interesting or boring, we're wired to notice it as we breathe in, thanks to our sympathetic nervous system. We're also wired during our exhalation to physically relax and mentally release due to our parasympathetic nervous system. So, just as Rumpelstiltskin could spin straw into gold, whatever raw experience we notice, we're able to tame our reaction to it through vulnerability and relaxation. It does not abide in the designations of past, future, and present, understanding that it has no arising nor ceasing, that itself is the integration of the three times in the total state. Being equal, there is nothing to arrange gradually. Being one, it is beyond dedicating something in a direction. Although the ornaments of accumulated offerings are arrayed, since they exist by nature, there is nothing to array. We don't need to lose ourselves in rituals. Buddha taught against rituals. Being spontaneously present, it is beyond dedicating. Pure from the beginning, it is nectar. The 12 sense bases are not to be particularly focused on with special intention. So this is important. Especially this time of year, a lot of manifestation gurus are coming out of the woodwork. The problem with actively manifesting is that it steals our peace. The method of manifesting inferred in this text is this. As we sit in meditation, our mind's going to notice what we desire and what we dread. As we relax into our exhalation, protection from what we dread, and acquisition or reception of what we desire is already in the works. We don't have to believe it. Believing is just rigidity. As we meditate, as we're mindful and we meditate, our centered spontaneity will take care of the rest. In terms of volitionally, verbally, and behaviorally. Just like the ridiculous, this is like the wonderful affirmation on TikTok last year. I do not chase. That which is meant for me will find me. The intention of the mind, the donor, always all through the power of perception. In the CD accomplishment that arises from having seen balance, meditation is perfected. Keeping it for an instant is union. Experiencing pleasure is samaya. So we're being told here is the simple pleasure of noticing and releasing is the essence of morality, which is pretty radical. Performing the dance movements of method, the union of non-duality is offered. Giving without holding, take two. Giving without withholding is the Torma cake offering. Being beyond action, all activities are completed. Since non-conceptual wisdom eliminates obstructors, balanced meditation without speaking is the mantra. Making offerings due to Guru generosity and all the other meritorious deeds Without the power of detachment and imperturbability become a great bondage. Therefore that which is expressed is the teaching. Take two. Therefore that which is expressed in this teaching becomes obscured when one tries to act towards it. Being thus, if it is conceptualized, it will never be realized. So don't make the mistake I did in my youth of being rigid and perfectionistic. Let us seal the practice with a bit of the old chanting, beginning with kind ethics and concluding with the four immeasurables. Together. May all beings practice of kind communication, conduct, and calmness for spontaneous and uncontrived. May everyone be free from misery, may everyone be happy. May no one be separated from the happiness. May everyone have balance from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging, freed. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 10.5 hours, I would very much like to return to lead tomorrow's morning meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, this is the way.